So this year, I had a chance to step up my game in terms of new tech products, and I've got to say, it's been a learning experience for me. Some of the tech I got this year, I had a chance to actually review here on the channel, but a lot of it I didn't. But since the year's almost over, I wanted to take a moment and review some of my favorite products I got to try, some that stood out for, shall we say, less good reasons, and in the mix, we'll talk about some Steam Deck accessories as well. Now, this isn't an exhaustive list of all the tech that I got to use this year. I made a playlist of my 2024 tech reviews for that, so if you want to check that out after this video, you can check that out up here. All right, now let's get into the list. The first thing that I want to talk about is this SanDisk 1.5 terabyte SD card. This is a microSD card, and this thing works great for your Steam Deck. You can load it up with Steam games, ROMs, whatever. Now, with this card, it's an A1 card, so I've had a few instances of slightly longer load times for AAA games, but really it's not that noticeable, especially if you're not comparing things head to head. Otherwise, though, this is a great SD card, especially for indies and ROMs. I highly recommend this SD card for the Steam Deck or for the Retroid Pocket 5. And speaking of, let's talk about this thing. Now, a little while ago, Retroid sent me the dev kit for the Retroid Pocket 5, and I'm a big fan of this thing. My game Doodlings actually works great on this, and I'm really happy with how this has been performing for me so far. I haven't just been doing dev work on it, I've also just been trying games. And you know, there's a lot of games from the Google Play Store that work excellent on here. There's also tons of ROMs. Now, I was going to review this on the channel, but there wasn't a whole lot I could add compared to what my friend Russ from Retro Game Core had to say about this. He made 2 videos. The total length of them was like over an hour, and he was so thorough, I was like, you know what? I don't have much more to add to that. But yeah, I've been messing around with this for a few weeks now, and it feels like a real premium device. I mean, it's an absolute cut above the previous iterations of the Retroid Pocket line that I've used. Now, it ships with Android, which is pretty cool, but you can also install Batocera or another ARM-based Linux distro on the SD card, and you can boot into Linux. That's pretty neat, and it's a very exciting possibility for this device and others like it, especially going forward. It has video out over USB-C, and it works with the docking station that I bought this year, too. Now, this device is surprisingly only $219 over on Retroid's website. That's without shipping. I'm not sure what the shipping costs are, but that's a shocking sticker price for what you get. So, yeah, I recommend the Retroid Pocket 5. I think this thing is neat. Now, about that docking station. This is actually amazing. It's got all the ports that you might need. It supports up to 3 4K displays. It's got 6 USB 3 ports and Ethernet. It works great on the Steam Deck with the caveat that the Steam Deck does not want to output to all 3 displays simultaneously that this thing supports. That's probably because this is technically a USB 4/Thunderbolt dock, where the Steam Deck is only USB 3. I'm not entirely sure how all that works. I'm not super versed in USB 3 and 4 and the subtleties between it. But it does work with my USB 4 devices just fine. I have had some weird issues where some devices don't actually support outputting to more than 2 DisplayPort or HDMIs at the same time. So the device that you're using has to support 3 4K outputs over USB. But you know what? It works very well with most of the USB 4 devices I've tried. It's normally $190, but it's 20% off now during the Black Friday sale on Amazon. Along with this, though, I bought this KVM Switch. And KVM, if you're not familiar, stands for Keyboard, Video, Mouse. And it connects a keyboard, video, and mouse. This particular model supports up to 3 monitors. This will then connect to up to 3 different devices. That's laptops, desktops, and whatever else might support KVM. And you can seamlessly switch between them. It supports 4K at 144 Hertz across all 3 displays. It also has up to 8K at 30 Hertz across all 3 displays. It has a wired remote that lets you change which device is connected at the current moment. And this is where things kind of start to fall into Alice in Wonderland territory. This is not a premium KVM. On a premium KVM, you wouldn't need a separate remote to switch between devices here. There'd be a keyboard hotkey that the KVM would intercept to do this functionality instead. Another very weird decision with this thing is the USB A to A cables that it came with. Now, these USB A to A cables are port killers if you use them with other devices. They can even destroy motherboards and whatever else might have a USB A port on them. And I'm not sure why this KVM opted to use these when there's already standard USB Type B connectors for this very purpose. But you know what? This is a no-name brand that I bought on a whim. So considering all the weirdness, I can't recommend this KVM unless you know exactly what you're getting yourself into. It absolutely works as a KVM, and all 3 of my 4K displays are supported with this thing at 144 Hertz. It absolutely works as a KVM if you need the bare essentials, and you're on a tight budget or whatever. It might even be worth the money if you get this during the Black Friday sale and you use the $15 coupon that comes with it. But again, this has just got some weird design decisions and some stupid caveats, and I can't in good conscience recommend this to folks. I think people should steer clear of this thing. Now, back to some good tech. For a simple charging cable, I've got a lot to say about this. First of all, I really like this flat cable design and the 90-degree angle of the USB port. The USB cable has a slim, nearly invisible profile when you've got the deck connected to it. Using it with my Steam Deck is a much improved experience over the previous charging cable that I've used and recommended here on the channel before. Instead of having this long, straight cable coming up and falling down, adding additional strain to the USB port on the Steam Deck, this design provides a very nice, low profile and low stress charging experience. This particular cable is 10 feet long too, so if you've got a similar setup to mine, where you have a large sectional sofa or whatever, and only one place to realistically plug in a charger, this should suit your needs well. It's rated for power delivery up to 60 watts, so it's fully capable of charging the deck and then some. And man, I just find it strange how much I have enjoyed this charging cable. It's normally $15 on Amazon, and during Black Friday, it's 10% off. So a few years ago, I reviewed a power delivery battery pack that could charge the Steam Deck. It was massive, it was heavy, and it really didn't make a lot of sense to use with the deck in all but a few very specific use cases. But now there are solutions that actually make sense. Like this, the Antank magnetic power bank for Steam Deck is one of them. Now it's got this clip that you can mount to your deck, and then the power bank magnetically attaches to the clip. And it comes with a USB-C cable that's short enough to not get in the way when using it, and I actually really like this design. It's rated for 45 watt power delivery via USB-C. The battery's capacity is 20,000 milliamp hours. And in the time I've had it, I haven't actually been able to go through an entire charge-discharge cycle, even though I have been using it extensively. So I think that speaks to the capacity. It's kept my Steam Deck playing Doom Eternal for multiple hours without depleting. It's pretty neat. At $60, I think it's a pretty good deal, and for $40 during Black Friday, I think that's even better. Now, I've been looking for a decent way to convert my Steam Deck into a laptop since basically day one. It's why I reviewed the Next Dock a few years ago, specifically for that purpose. But I bought this earlier this year, and this is the Invensic DeckTop. And despite the name, it's also compatible with the ROG Ally, the Legion Go, and several other handhelds. Now, this is because it's got this expandable clamp that gently grabs onto your device. And you might be thinking, hey, wait a minute, is that clamp 3D printed? And the answer is yes, it seems that it is 3D printed. Unfortunately, there's no information about the clamp being 3D printed on the store page. I will say, though, to their credit, the clamp is not as brittle as most 3D prints that I have used in the past. It feels like it might be 100% infill or something like that. But given that, I feel a bit, I don't know, deceived. Selling a product like this, it's 3D printed, it just feels wrong without mentioning that it is in fact 3D printed. I don't know. I would expect something higher quality, especially for the price of this. Anyway, this works as expected despite the 3D printed bracket here. The DeckTop connects to your Steam Deck via Bluetooth, which means that you'll have to charge this thing separate from your Steam Deck, which I find a bit annoying as well. And my only quibble besides the 3D printed clamp is this tiny little trackpad. It's so small that coarse movements end up moving your cursor way too fast across the screen, and the material that it's made of is not so ideal for finer adjustments. Anyway, at $90, all in on this thing, I don't think that it's worth that much for what you get. But I thought I'd mention it because, you know, I spent $90 on this thing. Like $90 feels premium level, and this does not feel premium to me. So JSAUX, I've talked about them here on the channel before, and I figured now's as good a time as any to try out the ModCase for JSAUX. This isn't my first experience with aftermarket Steam Deck cases. I reviewed the Kill Switch here on the channel a while ago, and you can check that out up here. And you know what? I've heard people say that the Kill Switch is overpriced when JSAUX has this case available for less than half the cost. But guess what? When you compare the ModCase to the Kill Switch, they're not the same thing. They're similar, they're in the same category, but there are important differences that I want to point out. Right off the bat, the ModCase has fewer bells and whistles. It comes with this Inspector Gadget-sized, like video phone wristwatch looking strap here. And this is for mounting things to the back of your ModCase, which, okay, not particularly an elegant design. The case also comes with this removable kickstand, which is kind of neat. Then there's this weird silicone little stand thing that doesn't feel that great to set your deck in, whether it has the case on or not. And finally, there's the actual travel cover, which pits this case head-to-head versus the Kill Switch. The big appeal of the Kill Switch is how it protects the buttons and the triggers. And while the ModCase here approximates that feature, it does not fully enclose the triggers like the Kill Switch does. Now, that's not the biggest issue in the world, and it does have its own benefits, like the fact that the USB port is not as obstructed by the case itself, like the Kill Switch's USB port is. For example, I was able to use the flat angle cable we talked about earlier with the ModCase where I can't with the Kill Switch. That's definitely a benefit. The other thing that I don't really like about the ModCase is the feel of the grips in your hand. It just doesn't feel as premium. Now, this particular bundle also comes with the cooler set, which supposedly, quote, increases airflow to reduce temperatures during gaming and prevents overheating. But unless you're like overclocking your Steam Deck or something, your deck is not going to overheat. That is to say, you don't need this cooler. I don't recommend using it, and it also uses an adhesive to stick to your deck. And weirdly enough, despite the fact that it comes with the ModCase, it doesn't seem to fit on my ModCase or on the deck without the ModCase in any way. Like, I cannot figure out a sensible way to connect this to my Steam Deck. I find that wild. However, despite the problems that I've mentioned here, I've got to say that for the cost, if you just get the ModCase without the cooler bundle, it's $30, which is actually a pretty great deal. And the cooler bundle is normally $50, but right now it's $40 with the sale. If you're looking for a travel case on a budget, the ModCase is an excellent choice. So back in July, I reached capacity on my NAS, and I needed some offline storage for my old footage. That's why I bought this Western Digital 16 terabyte Elements external drive. This allowed me to offload a ton of my footage from my NAS while still leaving it accessible if need be. At USB 3.0 speeds, it's not the fastest drive in the world, but it doesn't need to be. I just wanted to be able to tell my NAS to dump all of my old video files, my archives, if you will, onto an external drive. And I did that, right? So I have all my old footage here now on this drive. And that's good. I was able to set this up to copy stuff over unattended, and it was an unobtrusive experience. There was no fuss and no mess. But given how USB 3 bandwidth limitations are, and the fact that I shoot these videos in a lossless RAW format, I can't edit footage directly off this drive. That's okay. I can work around that. So if you need some high capacity storage that's relatively inexpensive in terms of price per gigabyte, I recommend a drive like this. The 16 gigabyte version is usually $310, but right now it's only $280. Now this year I also expanded my 10 gigabit home network and added two TP-Link 10 gigabit network interface cards to workstations here in my home office. The nice thing about this is that these cards are compatible with Linux and Windows, and they're terrific. They just worked on both operating systems, and they provide a reliable 10 gigabit link back to my network closet. Plus, they come with low profile brackets, which I ended up needing for one of the cases here in the office. I bought this Creality K1 Max 3D printer at the beginning of the year, and man, this thing has come in handy. It's super useful for printing all kinds of stuff. I printed tons of stands for my gaming accessories and controllers. I've printed adapters and brackets for stuff. I've even printed cases for some of the weird little electronics projects I've got going on. And I've also flashed some custom firmware on this thing, which has allowed me to use Mainsail to monitor my 3D prints and integrate it with my Home Assistant server, which has been very cool. This is easily the best 3D printer I've ever used. It has a time-lapse feature, it has LiDAR to detect failed prints, which hasn't always worked as reliably as I would want, and a lot more. Now, I love this printer. It comes with my highest recommendation, and right now it's available for 20% off at $719. Finally, I want to recommend the Zoom LiveTrak L12 mixing board and multi-track recorder. It works great for podcasting and audio production. Now you can write independent tracks directly to an SD card, and it's how I've been doing my audio this year. If you've noticed a difference in my audio recently, it's because of this board. However, there's one issue with this board on Linux. While all 12 channels are recognized and working with Jack D, Pipewire does not seem to recognize this mixing board for normal audio use cases over USB. There's a simple workaround for that. I have a shielded 3.5mm to RCA cable, and that plugs into the PC's built-in audio, and it goes right into the RCA jacks on channels 9 and 10, which I just hit this button here to switch from USB mode to the RCA input, and it works just fine. This mixing board is normally $600, but you can get it for $550 right now on Amazon's Black Friday deals. Now, I really like this board, and if you're into content creation or podcasting, this comes with my seal of approval. Well, that's most of the tech that I got to use this year that I didn't actually get to make a video for. I hope you found this video useful or fun or whatever, because I had fun making it. And if you want to check out the playlist of all of the tech reviews that I made this year, it should be on screen now. I want to thank my patrons for their continued support. If you believe in the work that I'm doing, you can get your name listed over here in the credits, by making a monthly pledge over on Patreon or by becoming a YouTube member. That's going to do it for now. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on Monday.